I'd like to welcome back our political panel. Joining me is Quardricos Driskell. He's a political strategist along with BNC contributor Tezlyn Figaro. And we also would like to welcome to the conversation Republican or political strategist Raynard Jackson. It's a pleasure having all of you. And Raynard, since you're just joining the conversation, I want to pick up where Quardricos left off, and that was in regards to, in response, better yet, to Officer Dunn's closing statement, where he just basically said, I don't understand why telling the truth is so hard. So what I want to ask you, Raynard, is some of your Republican colleagues, like, for instance, Republican from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, when discussing the events of January 6th, said it didn't seem like an armed insurrection to me. When you hear the word armed, you think of firearms. And basically, one of the response from one of the officers was there were bats, they were beating us with flagpoles. Was what we saw an armed insurrection on January 6th, in your opinion?
Well, number one, I need to find out what the definition of an insurrection is. And it's amazing people throw out all these terms and don't define the term. So I don't know what they mean by armed insurrection. Insurrection is simply people rising up either physically or verbally and saying, I disagree with a certain action. That's all an insurrection is. So I need to know what their definition of an insurrection is, number one. Number two, Officer Dunn is the last person I want to hear asking rhetorically, why should telling the truth be so difficult? Because his opening statement, he lied. And I'm amazed that no one on the panel, on the congressional panel, checked him on that. His opening statement was, before I get started, let's have a moment of silence for Officer Sicknick, I think his name, Brian Sicknick, who died, and he said he died in the line of duty. That's an outright lie. He did not die in the line of duty. I'm looking at the autopsy report now from the medical examiner. He died of a stroke, and the medical examiner specifically said it had nothing to do with January 6th. He died of natural causes. That's in the autopsy report. So he lied in his opening statement.
So are you negating the fact that these officers risked their lives on January 6th, Raynard? I mean, is that what you're saying?
That's your job as a police officer. Every day you put your uniform on, there's the possibility that you're going to encounter violence. You willingly accept that risk when you become a law enforcement official. So no one's minimizing that. These guys, they did a heck of a job. What my issue is with this whole, listen, Eddie Murphy would be proud of this comedy show we just witnessed, because this was a complete joke, because the real issue, Nancy Pelosi was notified 3 weeks before January 6th that there's going to be some violence on January 6th, and she turned down the National Guard, number one. Number two, the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, she said, I will accept the National Guard, but they cannot be armed, while she's walking around with a whole police detail who is armed. And so this whole notion that this incident on January 6th caught everyone off guard, it did not. They were warned about it. Pelosi did nothing about it because she's totally incompetent.
But what power would Pelosi have? That call needed to come from the executive office, Raynard. You know that.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Nancy Pelosi, by her being Speaker of the House, she has total control, and she's in charge of the security of the whole Capitol complex. So are you members thereof?
Okay, so you're saying that Nancy Pelosi, along with other Congress members, decided to just run for exercise on January 6th and hide out of fear of being hurt, because we heard some of those rioters screaming her name and looking for her and defecating on her desk once they found her office. So are you saying that was
issues?
Role playing?
No, Nancy Pelosi, by her being Speaker of the House, she was warned by law enforcement and the intel community in a private briefing that this was going to happen on January 6th. Do you want the National Guard to come in? She was asked. She said no.
Okay.
And that's why they're going to turn
I got to get someone else in here, Raynard. We're running out of time. Tezlyn, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, exactly. Squash all of that about who should have called the National Guard and not called the National Guard. First of all, it was not Nancy Pelosi's fault. President Trump shouldn't have called them. He said yes. He said yes to go march to the Capitol. He said yes with an insurrection.
He did not say that. Show me the videotape.
Yes,
show me the videotape.
I'm talking, Raynard. You hold up. Now you talk for the last 5 to 7 minutes.
Don't throw stuff out here. You have no evidence of it.
Raynard, stand back and stand by. I'm talking.
Where's the
now,
videotape?
like I said, President Trump shouldn't have never, ever asked these folks or told these folks to go armed to the Capitol.
Show me when he told them to go there. Show me.
Raynard, hush your mouth. Hush up.
No, show me where he told me. Show me the videotape.
We need to be respectful, Raynard, most certainly.
Exactly. We allowed you to talk for 5 to 7 minutes filibuster. You're not going to filibuster.
You all talk for 15 minutes.
We're not going to filibuster the rest of this segment. We're not going to filibuster.
Because you all have no facts. You have no facts.
No. Raynard, be quiet, please.
Tezlyn, finish, please.
President Trump incited this violence, which is an insurrection. Raynard said that an insurrection means people that are physically or verbally speaking up against something. That's exactly what they did. They physically went to the Capitol. They physically beat officers with poles. They physically beat officers with cattle rods. They physically squished and smashed Officer Hodge through the door. White supremacists that were incited by President Trump, deflecting on who should have said they wanted the National Guard or not want the National Guard, would not have stopped 10,000 people with going to the Capitol.
So if Pelosi called the National Guard 3 weeks before the event happened,
President Trump. The only person that could have stopped that was President Trump. And not only
he has no jurisdiction over how the House is run.
He encouraged it. He said, we're going to march to the Capitol, and we are going to take our country back. He said, we're going to march peacefully.
Include that in. See, that's what you liberals do when you have no argument to make.
And they did not march peacefully. They did not march peacefully.
But that's what Donald Trump said. That's what Donald Trump said.
The way you're disrespecting this panel right now, and how you have disrespected me offline, you are the perfect example of why we are where we are today in America. You are the exact,
I have no idea what that
same
means.
Attitude as the insurrectionist. You have the exact same disrespect. You're not listening to anybody else. You're yelling and screaming all over the place.
Are you throwing out any facts on the table? No.
No, that is a fact on the table. We saw the video. Did you not see the video? And so
Donald Trump said, let us go and march peacefully, and you edited that out of your statement. And they did not do that. So what you're trying to do, but you said Donald Trump told him to go march. No, he didn't. He said go march peacefully.
Get off subject as usual. You're trying to sit and yell and holler and scream. And like I told you last week, I'm an M60 gunner. You cannot intimidate me. So talking loud and being off track and having whataboutisms does not intimidate me. You cannot intimidate me on this panel.
I got a medical examiner's report.
And you most certainly, certainly, sir, cannot do it offline.